coming to you live from San Francisco, California. Wow, again?
Again.
Keep it going for Ralph, Zig, Tycho, and Zig in the Zone.
Zig in the Zone, joined by my producer, you, Paulie B.
Isn't it crazy? And then, of course, we're getting Lenny calling in now.
Lenny's calling in. We got Lenny Levine. We got Fred Wallin standing by. And let me get to Fred right away because I want to talk about your respective back problems.
Oh, yeah, we both have
You
back
both
issues.
have back problems. Paulie is new to the game.
I've only been going through it for a couple decades. That's it. Only a few.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Oh yeah, no, this is an ongoing, but this one's a new one. This is a new flavor of pain. So yeah,
right.
it's always something. I have degenerative disc disease, so I have a disc in my lower right back that likes to collapse whenever it wants to, and it could be from anything from bending over to pick up a piece of paper to sneezing to yeah. And this one is actually on the other side of my back, and it may be just a pinched nerve, but it's a fun one, let me tell you right now. But let's get over to Fred.
How about you? When did your back problems start?
I was going to play basketball at Arizona, and I went down, and you have scoliosis, and I was going to do the operation with Dr. Robert Curlin and Dr. Frank Jobe. And then a couple of days before, Dr. Curlin called, and we talked it out, and basically it's the spine, so it's dangerous. So I couldn't play basketball at Arizona, but I've always had scoliosis. And now, about 10 years ago, the right back, in my case, like yours, Paul, started hurting, and I thought it was probably cancer. It wasn't. It was lumbar stenosis, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And they all want surgery, and if they don't want surgery, then they want to put a piece of metal in there, connect it to the Wi-Fi. And I said yes originally to that. Then I thought about it. My Wi-Fi, my wife's Wi-Fi goes down all the time. So it's one thing after the other, and I can hardly bend over, can hardly walk, can't drive. So like Paul, it's a ever growing problem.
Wow. I didn't realize that Paul had been suffering for a long time with this, and I didn't realize that you were suffering this much. I'm sorry, Fred. I'm sorry you're going through it.
Well, I would like to have played basketball at Arizona.
Yeah.
And 50 years since.
Was Lute there?
Before Bruce Larson.
Pardon?
Bruce Larson was the coach before.
Okay. Were you a guard or a forward?
Well, I'm 6 feet and a half inch. I wasn't a center.
Okay. Were you on scholarship?
It was a half scholarship because I didn't play as a senior.
No, but oh, okay.
He actually saw me play as a 9th and 10th grader, and he said, stay in touch. And then as a 12th grader, my brother was dying of leukemia, so I quit the basketball team. And then I called him, and he said, all I have left is a half scholarship. I said, that's fine, because my aunt lived, Rose Silver was a famous attorney in Tucson, lived real close, and so it was fine. And so I was going to live there or on campus. It didn't matter. And anyways, it never happened. And then again, 10 years ago, the right back really started hurting. And I've seen a million doctors, and they all want surgery. And again, it's a disc thing too. It's mine is like clogged, and like Paul's saying, so it's very, very delicate.
Wow, I'm sorry. Did your radio career result in your not playing basketball? How did that come to be?
Well, I don't know. Perhaps I started doing sports shows right out of college.
Oh, okay.
Good. Lenny Levine, I'd like to introduce you to our audience. And our guest today is Fred Wallin, who is a big radio guy, Sports Byline. And I'm hoping that you two meet and get it together so that you can appear on Fred's show on Sports Byline as well. He's helped me. I wrote a book and appeared on his show numerous times, and he's become, over the years, a Goomba, so to speak. We Jews don't have Goombas. But
No,
we'll
Jews
do the
don't
be-
have Goombas. We got
but we'll do the best we can. We'll make you a mishpacha,
Mishpacha is our Goomba.
comfortably zoned, and Zig in the Zone, and really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Nice to meet you too, Fred.
Fred's here, and the producer is here. Paulie B. Paul Brumbaugh.
Yeah, I'm the guy that chastised you just a few minutes ago. How are you doing,
Paul.
Lenny?
Thanks. At last.
Good to see you. And this is full size us. This is full size us. Well, let's go over to Fred. What were you guys talking about, Fred, when I rudely cut you off?
Oh no, it was just that Ralph was asking. Perhaps I wouldn't have gone into radio if I played basketball at Arizona, and maybe I probably would also. I would have probably still gone into radio. I was not going to play pro. I didn't. I could jump, but I wasn't going to. But I didn't think I could make the pros. I was pretty objective about my talent. I could shoot well, I could dribble well, I could jump well, but professional is another story altogether. So after college, I don't know. I would have graduated at Arizona, and maybe radio, maybe TV. Who knows?
Yeah. Let's get into the difference between amateur ball, college ball, and pro ball. That's that big step. You've been around athletes, all sports, for years. What are some of the things that make it easy for a player to take that next step, and what are some of the things that make it difficult, if not impossible, beyond just the pure talent? What's the difference in the game itself?
You're asking me? You're
Yeah,
asking.
pro to amateur.
I think a lot of it
That's
is
me.
a lot of it is psychological. I think you were this. Let's say you were a star in high school. You wanted to be the number one guy on the college side, but maybe there's somebody there better than you or as good as you, and then maybe you played college and now you get drafted or you don't get drafted in the pro side in any sport, and maybe as talented as you were in college, there's somebody on the pro side that is just better than you. It's hard for you to take, and you got to appeal to the coach, and you maybe appeal to the college coach, and you're not appealing that much to the professional coach. I think that's got a lot to do with it. Your hopes and dreams don't have to come to fruition. You can go only so far with the talent that you have.
Yeah, but just trying is really fulfilling your hopes and dreams, that you had the opportunity and that you took advantage of it and took it as far as it would go. Lenny, you were going to interject something about the difference between pro and amateur.
Well, I was saying, don't ask me because I am not an athlete. My dream when I was a kid was to be a play-by-play announcer.
Oh, who was your favorite announcer as a kid?
That's what I used to do. I would announce games, turn the
But
TV sound off.
who influenced you? Who did you want to be like?
Red Barber. Red
Oh.
Barber. Even before Vince Scully, Red Barber. I mean, that's how old I am.
Right.
And he was the best, and he had all these little folksy mannerisms. And then when I was 15 years old, I became friends with a guy named Marvin Alfrechty, who later on became Marv Albert. And Marv and I were the president and vice president of the New York Knicks fan club
Oh,
back
wow.
in '56. And I used to go over to his house in Manhattan Beach. He had a tape recorder, one of the early home tape recorders. It weighed a ton. And we would turn off the sound, and both of us would do the play-by-plays. He was very, very ambitious. I mean, he would cut out advertising copy he cut out ads from magazines, and that would be our advertising copy. And we would read these, in between innings, we would read these commercials.
As if you had commercials.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how it worked, commercials,
In a sense, it was all fantasy.
Yeah, yeah. No, it really was. And that was my dream, was to be Marv Albert, what Marv Albert became. Right. But he did it instead. He had a tremendous amount of ambition, to go with his talent, of course.
I'm out in California. He had a brother that did the Warriors for a while.
Was it Steve?
Steve
Albert?
Yes.
Sure. He did the New Jersey Nets at the time.
Dr. J.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you lost your team, Fred gained a team. So, what was your heartbreak about losing? I lost my Giants, and losing the Dodgers in my memory, just as bad, because without the Giants, the Dodgers don't have the rivalry. Without the Dodgers, the Giants don't. What made it all great was the rivalry. And you throw in the Yankees playing in the World Series. We grew up in wonderful times.
Oh, yeah.
How did the heartbreak of losing the Dodgers most affect you?
The only thing I could do to watch a Major League Baseball game, unfortunately, was to go up to Yankee Stadium and watch and root against the Yankees. Because what else could I do?
Right.
And I would go up there. It cost 75 cents for a bleacher ticket. I would bring all kinds of sandwiches with me. I would make my own scorecards and get the rosters from Baseball Digest, which had all the major league rosters. So I would have to buy a scorecard at Yankee Stadium. And I would go up there and watch the Yankees and root against the Yankees.
I love Baseball Digest for just that reason. Every month you can see the revisions of the rosters and their numbers. So if, like, I'd play, my fantasy thing was dice baseball. And I would indeed announce my dice baseball games just to me and fantasize about doing it. And the numbers were very important. Who wore what number?
Yeah.
And in your mind, when you're doing fantasy, you want to know that Sam Stith is wearing number 17. And you know why? Because years later, you might become friends with Sam Stith. And he might appear on your podcast oft times. And I may get years. I didn't know it would happen, but I did know that somehow I would get the inside scoop. You were the president of the fan club or whatever. We're all Walter Middies looking for the inside, what's going on, and it brings us closer to the game. What did Fred? Let's go to you for a second. What's your immediate? What was your immediate gain by having the Dodgers in your life?
Well, March '59, the year after they came here, we were at Dodger Stadium, 93,103 for Roy Campanella night. And I was like very, very young, but something I've never forgotten in my whole life. And then in 62, my dad managed a butcher shop. He worked 6 days a week. He had to wake up at 6:30 in the morning, and we're at Dodger Stadium, and the Dodgers against the first-year Mets. And Koufax in the first inning throws an immaculate inning, and we're through 6, and he's got a no-hitter. And I say to my dad, he's got a no-hitter going. And he says, yeah, but we got to go. I got to get up early in the morning. So I actually listened to Vince Scully, and I don't know how many people can actually stupidly say this. At the game, that I listened to the last 3 innings on the radio, something I've never forgotten as long as I live.
Wow. I have a similar story about having to leave a game. I went to a doubleheader, Mets first year against the Braves. Hobie Landreth hits a home run to beat Warren Spahn in the first game. It was Yom Kippur. It was Yom Kippur, and I had to bring my younger brother to my Aunt Fagel's house because they were observant, and I didn't get to see the second game. I can't remember what happened, but the Mets won.
Won the doubleheader. Actually, I was at that game. I missed the first game. I came in just after Hobie Landreth hit the home run to win the first game.
And that's when I had to
leave.
The
second game, which was won by a home run to the right field upper deck by Gil Hodges.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Another person who I befriended over the years and has come on my podcast often is Irene Hodges, his daughter. And that is Lenny, my having to leave after Hobie Landreth's home run and you getting there.
Arriving. I know. We might have passed each other in the entrance.
Is another one of those incredible baseball moments I'm having. I'll remember that for the rest of our lives. And we could always refer to that. I miss Gil Hodges hitting that. And I was not someone who adjusted to the Mets very easily. I was an original fan, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the Giants. And when Gil hit a home run, as an example, he was still a Dodger. Zimmer was there. Charlie Neal was there. Clem Levine was there for a while. It wasn't an adjustment, and if I had to do it all over again, given the fact that I lived my adult life in San Francisco, I might have stuck my loyalties with the Giants, who I was very disappointed when they left. Fandom is crazy. It is, and loss of a team. That's why the A's are about to leave, and I'm hoping someone with some power, I'm speaking to both of you guys and Paulie, can bring up and get eminent domain working. There was talk about that years ago. What happened? Paul, Fred, can you tell me from an insider point how that died? The talk.
I can't really, and I'm not an attorney. Both my brothers are the attorneys, but the stadium was just sold finally. So I think it's history. I don't think there's any way at this point to bring them back. They're going to be in Sacramento, and then they're going to be in Vegas.
Absolutely, they're gone. But maybe talk of eminent domain might
but how can
might say
when you're drawing 2 or 3,000 or 4,000.
Of
How can
course.
you make the case that the loss of the A's is hurting the population? Nobody's showing up. So I mean, when the Dodgers came and they got eminent domain, it was based on the fact that they were going to draw a lot of people, and the
But
city was going to get a
they
job.
would and could. There's a hell of a market. 1989, for instance, when the Giants played the A's, each team was drawing like 2 million a year. And what happened recently? No money is put in. Generation after generation of fans have seen the Giambis come up and what have you, and then be sold off. And then another group of great guys come up, be sold off. You can't build the fan base that way. If there were an owner who could take over and show some interest, and um, I'm dreaming, but the dream is now for saving some kid in some market from losing his or her team at an early age. I was 11. It was heartbreaking. I mean, it's a bigger loss as I've had outside of family and close friends passing um, in my lifetime. I'm still pissed. Not at at Stoneham because he was put in a position where the city wasn't putting any money into the polo grounds, this, that, and the other thing. But Walter O'Malley was making big bucks before when he was in Brooklyn and he was planning the move to LA, and it was absolute greed. And if that time, if there were eminent domain, he would have been forced to sell the team to an owner who could appreciate the fan base, which Brooklyn fans were the best fans and are. If you look on Facebook, if you look on groups, Brooklyn Dodger fans are still. Uh, Peter Trunk runs a Facebook um, about uh, not just Facebook, but YouTube as well about the Dodgers. And there's incredibly more interest in the Dodgers than there is today about the Giants. Willie was the Giants, and his passing brought back the heartbreak for a lot of people. But very few people nowadays, even if they were Giant fans, could recite the lineups of the 54 team in the World Series, of the 57 team when they're about to lose, and the 51 team. The first year when I was 4.5, I went to go with my grandfather to the Polo Grounds, and I got to see the Giants before Willie was brought up and after he was brought up, and I got to learn the different players that switched positions. Bobby Thompson went from center field to third base, for instance. Um, these are memories that kids won't have today. And I really feel sorry for the way the baseball is going in the future, because it's impossible to build memories when you can't see games on TV because everything's at night. So you can't, if you're a kid, you can't be going to 40 games a year at night. Um, it's screwed up. Um, Lenny, more about your loss and you were a kid too.
I was actually a teenager.
Yeah,
I was 16 years old when they
I
moved.
was 11.
And actually, I was
Wow.
at the last game ever at Ebbets Field. I
Wow.
saw the first game,
Your
the last.
age?
I saw the first game the Mets ever played in New York City. I saw the last game the Dodgers ever played in Brooklyn.
Wow.
But it was outrageous. It was unheard of. Only two major league teams had moved like that in recent years. One was the Boston Braves to Milwaukee, and Boston Braves were a second division
St.
club.
Louis and
The other was the St. Louis Browns to Baltimore to become the Orioles. St. Louis Browns were a second division club. You moved because people didn't come and you were a second division club. You didn't move the year after you were in the World Series.
Unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. They were talking in '57 that this was going to be the
And
last
like
year.
I say, they weren't the biggest drawing team. They might have been the biggest drawing team in the National League at the time. They certainly made profits galore.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it was basically greed.
Sure.
Basically, totally greed. Now, again, I could look at both sides on this podcast. It made you and I very unhappy. But like Fred says, he got to see the only thing that Walter O'Malley did was that was really truly magnanimous and heartwarming was Campy's Night. Tell me about how that went for you. I know they turned out the lights and people lit candles, and it was the Coliseum, not the Coliseum in Oakland. I mean, they had 90,000 people there. Am I
93, 103.
There you go. There you go.
So it did affect you, huh? You do remember 93, 103. Had you said 102, I would have said he didn't care. He didn't realize he did, but you cared, and I think that helped establish not only your fandom, but a lot of people's fandom, because Campy was a beloved figure, not just for the Brooklyn Dodgers, not just for the LA Dodgers, but his tragic happening affected every baseball fan. And he himself was a superstar in his day. So, terribly moving that day. And if I'm not mistaken, O'Malley, who was not prone to do anything like this, he donated the money on to Campy's cause. Am I correct? The benefits.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. I didn't see that night because it was out in L.A. and
Right.
I was still back in Brooklyn. Read about it, heard about it, and of course, it was the shock of Campy's accident when it happened. That was in that winter between 57 and 58. That was just shocking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
First, they lose. We knew the teams were going if we were a New Yorker, and then it was a February night, and there was ice on the road. There were no seat belts involved. I don't know if they even made them at that point.
No,
And Campy owned a liquor store in Harlem.
Yeah.
And it was the custom, one for the road. So that played into it quite a bit, I'm sure. But I remember seeing headlines and pictures. can't be recovering like that. They use that word. There was no recovering. He was a quadriplegic and quite embittered by it all, as would anybody um,
Would be
going.
by that situation. Yeah, absolutely.
He wrote a book, if I'm not mistaken, that was upbeat, but he had several bad experiences with matrimony, and he was it was just terrible. As a Giant fan, I started loving Roy Campanella. And it was the first time that I admitted that, Carl Furillo was just as important to me as Don Mueller or any of them. All these guys, Carl Furillo worked part time in the off season in a grocery store 2 blocks from me. I'd go in and see Carl Furillo looking like Mr. Whipple.
Don't squeeze it. Don't squeeze the show.
Right? And he takes stuff off the shelf with a big stick, and he'd write the price. They didn't have cash registers. He'd write it in pencil on the bag when he saw. And this was Carl Furillo. So I realized at that point, these guys were human. And my experience with talking, and I'd make phone calls to like Sam Huff, Lee Grosscup, anybody who would talk to me, who had a list of phone numbers, I'd call them and just chat about stuff. I realized then that these are just human beings. And if I chose to someday, which I did, I could talk to people like that of all walks in life, but especially players, managers, coaches, writers. Great to talk to these people, but you have to have the gumption to do it. And let's go to Fred for a second. Tell me about Fred. Tell me about your first radio gig.
My first radio gig, it was a sports show on KIEV 870 here in Los Angeles, and I'm not even on it. I don't remember exactly how it all happened, but they actually called me. I'm trying to think from how it occurred, but one of the Beatons, they owned it, actually called me, and I had written something for one of the papers here as a college kid or right after college, and I guess the newspaper gave them my name, and they said, we want to do a sports show. I said fine, and we can't pay you, and I said I can't do it. They said, but we'll get you a somebody to sell it. I said then I can do it, and it was like it was fun. And I'll tell you the craziest thing of all about that, and Lenny and Paul and Ralph. I think you'll get a kick out of this. My cousin Georgie was a horse player, and KIAV would run the races. Bill Garr was his name. He'd run them on KIAV, the races, but maybe 5 or 10 minutes after the race really ran, they'd run on the radio. Okay, so 2 or 3 times, Georgie and I were talking, and I said to him, here we go. And so I listened to the original Bill Garr as the race was going, and he called the bookie. He actually got 2 or 3 bets in
Oof.
before the bookie figured out that he really wouldn't have bet a 20-1 shot to win the thing.
Wow.
So that was KIUA, and I was always friends with the Beatons, and but the bookie wouldn't let him do it anymore.
Well,
That's like the Sting. That's the plot of the Sting,
yeah.
getting the race results a couple seconds before the real one. Yeah.
How did you go, Lenny? That was a good question, I might add, that I asked Fred, because I have one like that for you. How did you come to be a fiction writer of the Dodgers? What what went into that? What preceded that?
Well, what preceded that was I was working as a proofreader for several years, and very unhappily so. I had was very fortunate enough to have had a 20 years career as a studio singer, writer, and singer of jingles, commercials, music for commercials, and it all kind of dried up in the 90s. And I became a proofreader, and kind of a disgruntled proofreader, sitting 8 hours a day proofreading junk mail. That's what I did. I used to say, letter perfect from the mail to the pail. That was my job, proofreading these advertisements. And I had dead time, so I had an idea for a mystery novel, and I wrote it during my off time, and I thought that I had written something pretty hot. Of course, I was just beginning and just learning what to do with it all. And before it was over, I had written two mystery novels, both based on my previous life as a singer, songwriter, and musician kind of thing. And I finally was able to retire from that proofreading job and move up where I live now in lovely Bethel, Connecticut. Just very lucky to find this place with wonderful people here, wonderful community. And I had this thought, and I had actually had the thought while I was still proofreading, about doing something about the last week of the 1951 season, because this was a situation where, if you're reading the book or if you're reading a story about it, you know what's going to happen. It's like there's going to be something that's going to happen at the end of this, and you know what it's going to be. But if we can find all the little ways where it might not have happened, that would be kind of interesting. All the little points along the way where if this had happened and that had happened, because they finished in a dead tie. Imagine all the games, all the pitches, all the situations that had to be just work out just that way. So I thought, okay, this would be great for a mystery if I make a fictional world around that of Dodger fans and Giant fans, and have it involve murder, because there was a lot of enmity and animosity between Brooklyn and Giant fans in those days, and especially that last week, because the Dodgers had this history of blowing it. They blew it the year before that on the final day. All the way up to that, they would, whatever it was, they would almost get there and blow it. So I thought, the anger and the animosity was such that as that week was developing, and Dodger fans just had this sense of doom, even though they were in first place still by a game with several games to go, you just knew that it was, they were going to blow this damn thing. And so I combined all that in my fictional world and made it so that it all worked up to the final moment when Bobby Thompson hit the home run. That's when the moment of climax happens in my story at the exact same time. And I thought that would be kind of a fun thing to do. And it was for the next 5 years of my life. But
did the nun really catch the ball?
Did who really catch the ball?
The nun.
That's a mystery about where that ball went, right? Don DeLillo had his first chapter about that in one of his books. I don't know. My story doesn't depend so much on the actual physical home run, but hearing it on the radio, hearing Russ Hodges make that call, because my book is about fans. It's also switches to the field and it gets into the minds of the players too as a counterpoint to it. But it's basically about these fans. And so Bobby Thompson's home run happens in my book on the radio, just like it happened to millions of other people.
You know
And
who's on deck? You know who was on deck for that?
Willie Mays.
Willie
Willie
Mays.
Mays was on deck. Yeah.
And I think this is the first time that I get to refer to the late Willie and offer condolences to his family or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really sad. He lived a long time. He was 93, but anytime.
We're talking about James Earl Jones now.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And Ed
Okay.
Kranepool.
Yeah.
Ed
Yes.
Kranepool passed away yesterday, too.
Yes.
The
Yes.
older we get, and I must say, Lenny, you're like 4 or 5 years older than me.
Yeah.
How do you stay so young looking?
This is my karmic
I wanna know who
reward.
the surgeon
My karmic
is.
reward for having to show my card in bars until I was almost 30 years old.
I can imagine.
I'm very grateful. I'm very, very thankful every day
Yeah.
that I've lived this long. Neither of my parents lived nearly this long, and I'm continuously grateful for my life. That it's lived so far this long. But I want to tell you something about Willie Mays, because you had mentioned about rooting for seeing Carl Furillo, as a human being, and even though you were a Giant fan, I was, of course, I hated Willie Mays, hated him. The Duke, that was my guy. And my friends and I would come out to Ebbets Field. We did this during 55 years of 55, 56, 57. We saw a lot of games. And we would show up early, 10 in the morning, when the players arrived, and get their autographs coming in, give them postcards, which they would at their leisure.
We do that too.
Okay. Well, and then catch them after they left at the end of the game. It was an all-day affair for me and my buddies. And Duke Snider, unfortunately, because I love him, love Duke Snider, he was not the friendliest of people to us kids. He would come out of the clubhouse at the end of the day and just walk down the street to where his car was parked, and we would be chasing him and begging him and holding the postcards up, and he would have his head down, barely say a word to us. But okay, different personality. Well, they were playing the Giants at Ebbets Field one day, and I had just finished chasing Duke Snider down the block, trying to get him to take a postcard from me the way I always did. And I came back, and Willie Mays was standing there in the rotunda, the Brooklyn, Ebbets Field's rotunda, the entrance there.
Right.
And he was chatting with everybody, and he was signing not postcards, he was signing autographs and stuff. And I went up, I got the autograph, thanks, Willie. And another player was leaving, I chased the other player, and when I came back, there was Willie Mays, still standing there, chatting with kids, signing autographs. He must have been there more than 20 minutes. And finally, he looked around, and he said, "Everybody okay? All right? You all right?" And we said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay, bye-bye, bye-bye." And he went and got in his car. And I said, "Wow, how can I hate Willie Mays anymore? What a person." So that's my story about seeing how the enemy was really, human.
And the life really embittered Willie Mays. He wasn't the same Mays. First of all, after DeRocha was let go, he didn't get along with Rigney. He was used to be treated like an absolute prince, and he wasn't. Secondly, when they did move, he wasn't accepted readily by the Giant fans in California. And to top it off, there's a great deal of prejudice. Paulie, you've lived in San Francisco. I've lived in San Francisco.
Right.
Back then, especially, Willie couldn't buy a house in the great neighborhood that he wanted to.
Yeah.
And all that plus the way baseball, in other words, he had been a rookie in like 51. Socially, baseball wasn't progressing into the 60s. As an example, Bill White, very close with Willie when Bill White came up with the Giants, went to the Cardinals. In spring training in St. Pete, Bill White and his teammates, Bob Gibson and what have you, they couldn't stay at the same hotel as white players.
Oh, yeah, St. Louis was very segregated for a long time after other cities were integrated.
But St. Petersburg, Florida was that
Sure.
way. All through
Sure.
Florida, Willie got to see the way things were. There's a book, you wrote a book about those. Willie's Time was written by a fellow by the name of Einstein, Charles Einstein. I think he was the dad of the brother of the comedian and the other.
Sure.
Um,
Albert Brooks.
right.
It's really Albert Brooks' time.
There's a chat, Albert Brooks, right. And there was another brother who just passed.
Bob Einstein.
Yes.
Yes, Bob Einstein.
Bob Einstein. He did a chapter in his book about Las Vegas, the Giants visiting in Las Vegas to play an exhibition game. And he made it clear that when you look at Las Vegas, because it's so much touristy at that point, and at this point, that you're going to see basically a representation of America in Las Vegas. And how Willie and the Giants, the black players, were treated in Las Vegas, you could understand why when I say Willie became embittered, he was embittered. And he wasn't a happy person in life. There was a lot of things. But he took Bobby Bonds, Barry's dad, under his wing, and Giants did little to help his alcoholism. What they did was foist him off into some other team, and then some other team, and what have you. And Willie got to see how management really cared or didn't care about the players. And you have to know too, or as you guys do, and as it was a time, Willie's career was a time when free agency came into being. And that didn't improve management's and players' relationship. So there was a lot going that he lived a great life, but it wasn't the life he was living when he was in that rotunda. And, and he would go out and play stickball with the kids in Harlem.
Right. In Harlem. Well, that's right. I mean, he played for a team that played in Harlem. You know, what could be better? He was in his own neighborhood for,
and it was New York, and
yeah, can't play stickball in San Francisco, can you? With all those hills.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it depends on where you're at, really, in the world. It's still kind of left and right coast, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Different climate, different topography.
Fred,
history.
Did you ever spend time on the respective coasts? You're from Brooklyn, New Yorker. you spend any extended time in California?
I did for a while during the 70s. Many of my friends moved out there, my actor friends.
Oh,
And so if I had any time off, generally, then I wasn't married then either. I would
yeah.
fly out to LA and spend a few days with friends. And I made several trips out there during the 70s.
I'm
And,
guessing
you
it
know,
was
kind of,
because you also have a background, Lenny. You have a background in music. You graduated from Brooklyn College in '62. You kind of did the whole kind of gambit of music. You went from folk to folk rock to rock, and then
right.
and then you even sold your soul to the devil and started doing jingles.
Well, that's right. Yes, that's right. I did. That was an interesting thing. I didn't even know such a business existed. But a publisher friend of mine uh, who used to was a great fan, but I wouldn't. I could write songs, but they were funny. You know, that they were interesting, but they weren't hit songs. I could never get a hit song. And he said, "You ever try writing jingles?" I said, "Oh, I've never heard of it." A friend of his owned the music house, and so I went and played my songs for this guy, and he gave me a shot at Yardley Cologne, and I got it. It was like 100 to 1 shot that you get something first shot out of the box. But I did it. I sold my little Yardley jingle. It took me like 5 minutes to write, and I got like $2,000 for a fee. And I said, "Ooh, this is an interesting thing." But of course, the next job I got in jingles wasn't until a year and a half later. You know, it didn't quite all work out. That overnight success. It was a long night, so to speak.
So did that come from like playing around with like other songs and like what? See, I'm a writer also, and I'll write parody stuff, or I'll listen to a
Yeah,
current song and I'll make fun of
yeah.
the lyrics.
There you go.
And so was that your beginning of that?
Well, my beginning of that was sort of trying to write hit songs. I wasn't interested in parody. You know, I mean, I did it. I wrote like class shows in high school. You know, doing exactly that, putting different lyrics to well-known songs that had to do with the show. You know, with the thing we were doing. But I was a folk singer because of the social. Pete Seeger was a huge influence on me, and the social activity of it.
The Weavers.
The Weavers, yes, a revelation. First time I ever heard the Weavers.
Absolute
The
harmony.
harmony, yeah,
Harmony was before Peter,
excellent.
Paul, and Mary. I think
Yeah,
Peter, Paul,
Peter, Paul, and Mary were the descendants of the Weavers.
right.
All of folk music, commercial folk music, Kingston Trio were descendants of the Weavers, and that's where I got into it when I was like 17 years old. And so, you know, I learned to play guitar. I actually learned to play banjo, and I would sing these folk songs. I didn't write my own songs. I sang these folk songs, and then ultimately I started to write songs that were kind of folk song things. And then I tried. Then the Beatles, that opened it all up. That brought the world of pop music and folk music and everything together. And so I wanted to be like the Beatles.
I have a segue to what I want to touch on
Go.
with you guys.
Go ahead.
Woody Guthrie.
Yeah.
He was a slumlord for our former president's father. And I want to know what you guys are thinking about the fact that with all his convictions now and all that's going on, how is it possible for this guy to still be running for president? Does that just amaze you?
Yes.
About humankind, about X number of people that even would think about supporting a guy like this. What has this country become? And I see, but I have you up on the picture. I see your expression, Lenny. I want Fred's expression. What? Put Fred up a second. What has this become?
Well, Woody Guthrie wrote the song Beach Haven. the story of Fred Trump, Donald Trump's dad, and when the black soldiers would come back from World War II, he wouldn't sell or lease or rent to a black soldier. I think I told you this story, but my uncle Eli was a businessman in New York, and in the early 70s, 73, I think, my mom had him over for dinner. And I don't know how this came up, but 10 minutes in the conversation, I think my mom asked him, how's business going? And he said, it'd be going a lot better, but the Trumps are so anti Semitic that I won't deal with them. And so when you ask me about this country and Donald Trump, all I can tell you is he's the lowest of the low. But this is a stupid country. And, Germany, only 30, the highest number of votes that Hitler got was only 37% in Germany. This guy has gotten 48%. Trump has gotten 48%. So forget I'm just talking about the votes across America, not the Electoral College. He got 48%, and he's going to get 45 to 50% this time. And you can only hope and pray that tonight, in fact, in about 6 hours now, Harris destroys him. But I'm not even sure that'll matter. I think it's a stupid country, and it's a racist country. So it doesn't matter if he's a convict and a felon and whatever. He's on their side. They know he's on their side. And all he's going to do is lie tonight. And it's not going to matter. Number one thing when you think of him is a liar. Before being a racist and before being not very bright, can't put two words together. The number one thing you think about Donald Trump is he's a liar. But does the public in this country care? We'll find out.
Yeah. Well, that was my question. Is that I think it has to do, his empowerment has to do with the deterioration of the education system in this country years ago.
Yeah, and also people not holding him accountable, holding his feet to the fire. We've had enough fact checkers. They need to do it in real time. They need to do it in real time during the debate. As he's spewing lies, they should be putting up stuff right behind him on a board. What is it? Over so many million people have come into this country that are murderers and all this other stuff. They literally need to have that posted behind him going, nope, that's a lie. Nope, that's a lie. Here's the real figures. Here's the real stuff in real time. Even if they have to delay it, even if they have to put a delay on that even more, which, they are anyway. They're already muting mics. So,
yeah. Hey, this brings me back in my memory to Ford pardoning Nixon. And I think it's led to that. It's led to this. He got away with it, basically. And every president in the back of their minds knew then, and will know in the future, that they won't be held as accountable as before. And that makes it tough. Makes it tough on us. But I just want to say, I think it was a month ago, Fred was on, and we talked about, it was right after Biden's speech, and we talked about there was no way life was going to go on as we know it. Now, at least we got a shot, more than a shot. I can't imagine her not winning, but we still got to get out the vote. And
but even okay, we can't win no matter what happens. If she gets the most votes, there's going to be destruction in this country. You talk about January 6, 2021, what's going to happen this time around?
Well,
Trump's
I don't know. I think he's being looked at.
People.
he's being looked at differently because he wants to pardon the hundreds of people who
Right.
have already been convicted.
Right.
That won't happen. And I think those people are paying the price that people won't want to pay for a loser again, because it didn't bring that they got convicted. It didn't bring the country back the way they wanted it. So I think that's not going to happen this time.
Yeah, I hold out hope that there won't be violence. First of all, she's got to win. I mean, if she doesn't win, then we can't even talk about anything.
And
But
we haven't even
assuming,
brought up
assuming
the
that she'll
Supreme
win,
Court yet.
and even by enough of a margin that they won't realistically have any cause to say that the election was rigged. But that doesn't matter because they'll say it anyway, and it doesn't matter. But the difference between last time he was still in power and still in the White House. We had to get him to leave. This time, if he loses, we don't have to get him to do anything. And these people all on their own are going to have to, and some of them will, because they've got all these guns and they've got all this anger. So there will be, but not the way, hopefully, God willing, not like January 6th. I mean, there'll be incidents and individuals and stuff, but a mob like that, I don't believe is going to assemble the way it did when he was still the president, and they thought the president was telling them to do something. So that's my hope. What do I know?
Good. Fred, you want to take us out?
I hope Lenny's right. But
Thank you.
but again, I don't believe he is. I think this country's crazy, and
Well, I know that. Yeah.
and I think there'll be horrendous violence. And if she wins, and because he'll never accept the fact that he lost, and that's his whole life. He's never accepted defeat. I mean, I read his niece Mary's book from 4 or 5 years ago. Just read it, and just what his father and him talked about, and terms they use for Black people and Jewish people and Italian people and things like that. I mean, they he stereotypes people. People say, well, he's not anti-Semitic. Look at all his financial people. No, he stereotypes people, and he thinks Jews are crooks. So that's why he hired him.
He hires them.
I mean, and people just don't get that. And they hired Mike Cohen. He's not anti-Semitic. No, Jews are crooks according to him. So that's why I hired a Mike Cohen. And the guy who's in jail, Weisendorf, whatever his name is.
His mentor,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like this is, I agree with Vance about one thing. When he said 4 or 5 years ago that he's our Hitler. I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with Vance 100%. He's our Hitler. And Hitler could put two words together.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is all these dictators that he admires are actually much smarter than he is and work a lot harder to become the dictators that they became, and are much savvier. He was a joke. He is a joke. The reason he was picked for to host the Apprentice was a joke. It was like, who can we get to do this that would be,
right.
Let's get Donald Trump, because that's what he was. He was a joke. He was like a character. But for over a decade, people who were not New Yorkers saw him on national TV as a very successful businessman. Imagine a decade of this kind of publicity. And that's part of the root.
Didn't he save the skating rink in Central Park? I think he put some money into that. In any event, things are better than they were a month ago when we spoke.
Oh God, yes.
And thank God that that they got Biden to see the light.
He will go down in history as one of our great presidents for doing that and for accomplishing more in 4 years than almost any other president in history accomplished in several terms. Historians will look very kindly on Joe Biden, I believe.
Hey guys, it's been terrific having you both.
Thank you. Thank
Lenny,
you.
I don't know if you remember, you did an audio podcast with me a while back.
Yes.
And at that time, my stuff was being put in storage, and the book you sent me still hasn't been found in storage. I will read it, but I'm much more interested in what we talked about today. You are a very interesting guy, and Fred, we've done this on and off for 5 or 6 years now. I'll be interested to see and to pray that you're not. Well, I don't do much praying spelled that way.
Wishing.
Wishing and hoping.
I am.
There you go. That's a good song title for you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
And one quick thing. And Phil Oakes.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
And if you guys want to shout out anything, I know that let me see here. Lenny's got some stuff. LennyLevineWriter.com. Check out everything he does. Tell us the name of your book. Their Dodgers.
The name of the book is Die Hard Fan, and it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
And we're gonna have to have you back because there's so many more questions I want to ask you about your music career. I mean, you've written songs with Diana Ross, Barry Manilow, Pointer Sisters,
yes,
Billy Joel, Neil Diamond, Peggy Lee, Carly Simon.
Yes, worked with all of those people.
That is crazy. So we have to have you back. I would love to talk to you more about your music stuff. Fred, always a blast having you along for the ride, dude.
Have you done anything with Neil Sedaka, Fred? He on that
with
Lenny?
With Neil Sedaka, not yet.
Not yet.
he's working on it.
Lenny, a fellow Brooklynite, Neil Sedaka.
Yes.
Did you write anything with him?
I never wrote anything with him. No.
Okay.
No, he was one that I did not actually work with. I worked with his daughter, Dara Sedaka. She was a singer. Did some studio work in groups with her.
Okay. Who is the famous jingle writer in the 50s that you must have been someone you were influenced by? Wrote a lot of parody on jingles and commercials. Stan something?
Stan Freberg?
Stan Freberg.
Stan Freberg. Oh, yeah. Well, he did more than just parodies of commercials. No, he was a great satirist, a great social satirist.
Right. We don't.
But I didn't know jingle. I didn't know from jingles until, like I say, until the 70s, until the early 70s, when this publisher friend of mine, turned me on to it. I didn't even know the business existed, really.
And you wrote some pretty big, or you worked for some pretty big jingles things. Like you've mentioned Yardley was your first one, but then you had McDonald's, Lipton Tea, Jeep, all these. So definitely we got to have you back, Fred. Always a blast having you along for the ride, dude. So
thank you guys. Thank you guys very much.
And we want you to get better. You're feeling a little bit under the weather.
Well, I mean, had COVID and 3 months ago, and I still sneeze all the time. So do I have long COVID? I don't know. But thank you guys.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being here, guys. Please come back.
All right.
My pleasure.
All right. So here's your little shameless plug. I know you want to do this. So tell me a little bit about your friend at the auto repair guy.
Oh, man, I am blessed. You know my experience with driving and with cars and how it's incredibly important to me that I have a reliable vehicle.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I've gone through in life is that if you don't have a person you can trust in advance lined up,
right,
it's going to be very nerve-wracking.
Right.
Now, I was lucky enough to have the good brains to, first of all, I had not a radiator, but a leakage. It was called a reservoir leakage. I didn't know this, but a, uh, I called, plugged into Yelp, and I said, "Who's good in that makes calls that comes out, and who can I trust?" So I got all that information, and then met a guy, and he came out, and sure enough, we hit it off, where he knew what I needed, and I knew what he needed. He needs a little publicity. He's a young guy with a crew of mechanics in Oakland,
Okay.
and he does some incredible work. And I promised to spread the word about him in on our show, and he's more than happy to have me do that. And we made a little trade and out agreement where I couldn't afford the repairs, and he's I could only afford to pay parts, and he's gonna advertise on this show. His name is Dennis, and let me give you his phone number first.
And it's D1 Auto, or I'm sorry, D1 Mobile Auto Service. That's D1 Mobile Auto Service, and it's Dennis, and you're going to get a hold of Dennis
At 510-978-7064. Now, why am I so enthused about this guy? I went out there with the vehicle. I had my vehicle towed to Oakland because I didn't want it to overheat and blow up.
right?
But I trusted this guy enough that that I was going to do that, and then spent the day, because it took that long to get the parts, to reorder the parts. They sent the wrong parts. I got to watch Dennis and his crew, mostly family and family ties. These people are Hondurans. I didn't ever meet anybody from Honduras in my life. So I got the pleasure of meeting his family and his crew and seeing what they were like. This is a man who is in his community. He's wonderful. You go to him.
And you
People
don't
come
even have to go to him. He actually will go to you too. It's a mobile auto service. So if you're stuck on the side of the road, you're in the East Bay, you can reach out to D1 Mobile Auto Services. That's right, Dennis. And that number again is 510-978-7064. They will come out and help you. Or if
And
not,
they
you can
will
go to their
send
shop.
they will send a guy by the name of Kelvin. And Kelvin is an auto um, truck driver. He has his own business, and he works with them. And I got to know him because I rode along with him. He's got the same kind of compassion for what people go through when there's car problems. I joked with him. It's like having a kid when you follow. How's the kid doing? Is your car going to be all right? You know, it's a very personal thing. And he treats everybody who comes in there differently. He treats them well, but he treats them according to what they need, so that he can make them happy. That's his philosophy.
So there you go. He assesses everybody's needs because they're individuals and everybody's got a different thing going on.
Do you know who he reminded me of?
Who's that?
Was some guy in a studio that treats everybody like that with compassion.
Wow, I wish I knew that guy.
Yeah. Well, I wish you knew him better, because it would entail you knowing yourself better. We all don't know ourselves better, but he reminded me so much of you. He did my work, and and it was frustrating work. And he has a team. He brings in people, his team that works with him. They come in and they look at things and they work together. And um, they're a family. And it's just, I'm just blessed to have this man in my life. And I thought I'd put in a good word for him.
Well, there you go. And again, it's D1 Mobile Auto Service. And that's Dennis. Check out Dennis at 510-978-7064. And he'll take care of all those needs. If you're on the side of the road or you pull into a shop, you're there for him.
Hey, and you know what you need most when your car breaks down?
What's that?
Is somebody telling you it's going to be all right, and somebody meaning it, telling you it's going to be all right, and put you at ease. Until he came out, I thought he was overheating. He just needed some oil. Didn't need that. He needed that reservoir. Had to bring it in there. But I went, oh. And he put his arm around, this is going to be all right. Dennis will take care of you. That's the kind of guy. You folks out there, do you get that from your local mechanic? No. They have a list. It's going to be this. Price is going to be this. It's going to be an hourly rate for this. You could leave it here. We'll bring it back. But you can't watch us do it. You can't become part of the scene. And that's important. When you're excluded by your dentist, your chiropractor, you're excluded from an inside view. Makes it difficult. So, again, if you need help, see Dennis. We will post his information. And
here it is one more time, guys. It's D1 Mobile Auto Service. It's Dennis. Get a hold of Dennis at 510-978-7064. And again, tell him Zig sent you.
Tell him Zig sent you, because he will like that. Because, word of mouth, if you have to get 12 new customers from strangers, it's much more difficult than getting referrals. And so I'm referring Dennis to you, and that's the best I can do for you on this podcast. We had a terrific guest in Lenny.
Yep.
And
Lenny, Levine, and Fred Wallin.
And Fred is almost not like a guest.
He's almost like he's like a part of the family.
Part of the family. And we have about 25 guys that qualify. I mean, that love coming on, and we love having them. And it just makes for fun.
I agree.
And a relaxing time. And you're such a great producer. I've told you that before.
I appreciate
but
you.
I'm not bullshitting you. The spirit of this could not have happened if I had my mind on technology. If I had we'll put the camera on him. We'll
right.
do this. So, tell people what you're offering as a studio.
Well, I'm going to make this short and sweet because I know we're running a little long, guys. Ed Studios, we're here to help you kind of realize and bring your dreams to fruition, if you will. If you're at home and don't know how to launch a podcast, you could be anywhere in the world, and I can help you. Reach out to us at edstudiosonline@gmail.com. That's right, edstudiosonline edgestudiosonline@gmail.com. You can also go to edgestudiosonline.com and check out what we've got going on. But we can help you remotely. We can help you here in San Francisco. And I'm always willing to work with people. We can do a monthly. We can do one-offs. We can help you just get a project done. So check out everything we do, from Zig in the Zone to everybody else here. And for myself, Lenny, Levine, Fred Wallin, and this guy right here, Zig.
The old man.
We are out of here. We'll see you next week in the zone. Okay, guys?
Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching.